In the depths of Graceland, behind a door that Elvis warned should never be opened, lay secrets that would shatter everything Priscilla thought she knew about the king of rock and roll. For years, she honored his wishes, walking past that locked room countless times, the key burning in her pocket like a guilty secret. But grief has a way of making us brave, and what she discovered in those shadows would change how the world remembers Elvis Presley forever. This is the story of the room that held his deepest shame and his most profound love. The brass key felt cold against Priscilla's palm as she stood before the mahogany door on Graceland's second floor. 3 months had passed since Elvis left this world, and still she couldn't bring herself to turn that key. The hallway stretched behind her, filled with memories of rushed footsteps and whispered conversations that always stopped when she approached. "Promise me, Priscilla," Elvis had said during one of their last real conversations, his voice carrying that familiar mix of vulnerability and command. "Promise me you'll never go in there. Some things are better left buried." His blue eyes had held a desperation she'd never seen before, not even during his darkest moments with the pills or the panic attacks that left him, gasping for air in the middle of the night. She'd agreed, of course. Love makes us agree to impossible things, and her love for Elvis had always been impossible. Even now, standing alone in the hallway that smelled of his cologne and old leather, she felt that familiar pull of devotion mixed with resentment. How many secrets had he kept from her? How many locked doors existed in the mansion of their marriage? The afternoon light streaming through the stained glass window cast rainbow patterns on the Persian carpet. Downstairs, she could hear the muted conversations of lawyers and accountants, dissecting Elvis's empire with the cold precision of strangers. They wanted inventories, documentation, explanations for every corner of Graceland. But they didn't know about this room. Only she did. Her fingers traced the door's carved surface, following the intricate patterns that some long-dead craftsman had etched into the wood. Elvis had always been drawn to beauty with hidden depths, whether in music, in people, or in the objects that surrounded him. Even his secrets, she realized, would be beautiful in their own devastating way. The house creaked around her, settling into its afternoon stillness. Somewhere in the distance, a phone rang unanswered. The world outside continued its relentless march forward, but here in this hallway, time felt suspended, waiting for her decision. The key seemed to grow heavier with each passing second, as if it carried the weight of all the unspoken truths between them. Taking a deep breath, Priscilla closed her eyes and tried to summon Elvis's voice, that low rumble that had once made her feel safe and cherished. Instead, she heard only silence and her own racing heartbeat. When she opened her eyes again, her decision was made. The key turned with surprising ease, as if a lock had been waiting all these years for this moment. The door swung open on well-oiled hinges, revealing not the darkness Priscilla had expected, but a room bathed in soft, natural light from a skylight she hadn't known existed. Her breath caught in her throat as she stepped across the threshold into what could only be described as a shrine. The walls were covered with photographs, but not the staged publicity shots or concert images that decorated the rest of Graceland. These were intimate, private moments captured in black and white and faded color. Elvis, as a young boy, gap-toothed and grinning beside his mother Gladys. Elvis in the army, looking impossibly young and vulnerable without his signature hair. And there, in the center of it all, dozens of photos of children. Not his own child Lisa Marie was well documented throughout the house. These were different children, faces she didn't recognize, caught in moments of pure joy. Elvis pushing a little girl on a swing. Elvis kneeling beside a hospital bed, holding the hand of a boy who couldn't have been more than 8. Elvis at what looked like a children's home, surrounded by kids of all ages, his face radiant with genuine happiness. Priscilla moved deeper into the room, her heels silent on the thick carpet. The antique desk sat beneath the skylight, its surface covered with letters, all written in children's handwriting. "Dear Mr. Elvis," one began, "thank you for the bicycle. Mama says you're an angel." Another, in crayon, "I love you, Elvis. Will you be my daddy?" Her hands trembled as she picked up a manila folder thick with documents. Inside, she found records of payments, adoptions that had been quietly arranged, medical bills that had been mysteriously settled. Page after page of Elvis's private charity, done without fanfare or publicity. Children's homes in Memphis, Nashville, Las Vegas, hospital wings that had been funded anonymously, scholarships established under false names. But it was the journal that broke her heart. Elvis's handwriting, usually so confident and flowing, appeared shaky and uncertain on these pages. "I know what it's like to be different," one entry read. "To feel like you don't belong anywhere. These kids, they just need someone to see them, really see them. Money's easy to give, but time is the real gift." Another entry, dated just weeks before his death. "Priscilla would understand, I think. But how do I explain that sometimes I need to be nobody special? Just a man who cares about kids who got dealt a bad hand. The world sees Elvis Presley, but these children just see someone who shows up." She sank into the leather chair behind the desk, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she'd discovered. This wasn't just charity. It was Elvis's secret life, his way of healing something broken inside himself by healing others. Every child he'd helped, every life he'd touched, had been his attempt to father the world in ways his own fame had made impossible with his own family. The deeper Priscilla delved into the room's contents, the more she understood the true cost of Elvis's fame. Hidden in a cedar chest, she found hundreds of letters from children across the country, some dating back to the early days of his career. They weren't fan letters asking for autographs or photographs. These were desperate pleas from kids in foster care, orphanages, and broken homes, somehow finding the courage to write to the one adult who seemed to genuinely care about young people. What stunned her most was the evidence of Elvis's responses. Not form letters or signed photographs, but real correspondence. His handwriting appeared on letter after letter, some running to multiple pages. He'd answered every single one, and not with platitudes or empty promises. He'd asked about their dreams, their fears, their daily lives. He'd remembered birthdays, school plays, and small victories. A shoebox tucked behind the filing cabinet revealed something even more profound: plane tickets, hotel receipts, and itineraries that didn't match any of Elvis's known tours. These were his secret trips, times when he'd slip away from his handlers and security to visit the children who'd written to him. Memphis to Chicago to see a boy recovering from surgery. Las Vegas to Denver to attend a little girl's adoption ceremony. Nashville to Birmingham to speak at a children's home. The financial records were staggering. Elvis had quietly established trust funds for dozens of children, ensuring their education and care long into the future. He'd bought houses for families, funded medical treatments, and even arranged for some children to be legally adopted by loving families when their own situations became impossible. All of it done through intermediaries and shell companies, his name carefully scrubbed from every transaction. But it was a worn photograph tucked inside his journal that finally brought Priscilla to tears. Elvis at age 5, standing alone beside his family's shotgun house in Tupelo, his expression already holding the isolation that would define his life. On the back, in Gladys Presley's handwriting, "My baby, who never got to be just a child." Suddenly, everything made sense. Elvis's connection to children wasn't just compassion, it was recognition. He saw himself in every lonely kid, every child who felt different or misunderstood. His fame had stolen his own childhood, but he'd spent decades trying to give other children the security and love he'd never fully experienced. The room contained one final revelation, a letter addressed to Priscilla, sealed but never given to her. With shaking hands, she broke the wax seal and unfolded pages covered in Elvis's familiar script. "If you're reading this," it began, "and I'm gone, you've found my real life. I kept this from you not because I didn't trust you, but because I was afraid you'd think less of me for needing to be needed so desperately." Elvis's letter to Priscilla revealed the deepest truths of their relationship and his inner torment. "I know I failed you as a husband," he'd written. "I was always searching for something I couldn't name, some way to feel useful beyond the music and the movies. These children gave me purpose when everything else felt hollow. With them, I wasn't the king, I was just a man who cared." The letter went on to describe his greatest fear, that his charity work would be seen as a publicity stunt if it ever became public. "The world thinks they know Elvis Presley," he'd written. "They see the jumpsuits and the pills and the excess, and maybe they're not wrong about those things. But they don't see the part of me that sits on hospital floors playing cards with sick kids, or the part that cries reading letters from children who just want someone to believe in them." As Priscilla read, she began to understand the source of Elvis's restlessness, his inability to be fully present in their marriage. He'd been living a double life, not with another woman, but with a secret mission that consumed his heart and soul. Every mysterious absence, every unexplained expense, every moment when he seemed distracted and distant, it all led back to this room and the children whose faces smiled down at her from every wall. The filing cabinets revealed the scope of what Elvis had built, a network of social workers, doctors, and child advocates who helped him identify and assist the most vulnerable children. He'd created an informal system of support that had touched thousands of lives, all funded by his concerts and movie earnings. The famous Las Vegas residencies that had seemed like artistic compromise were actually his way of generating steady income for his real passion. One document made her laugh through her tears, a contract with a private investigation firm, tasked not with digging up dirt on business rivals or romantic interests, but with conducting background checks on potential adoptive families. Elvis had been personally vetting parents for children in need, ensuring they found safe, loving homes. The room's final secret lay behind a false panel in the back wall. Photographs of Elvis's own visits with the children, taken by the social workers and caregivers who'd helped arrange his meetings. In these images, she saw a man she barely recognized relaxed, genuinely happy, free from the weight of fame that had crushed him everywhere else. Here was Elvis playing guitar for children in hospital beds, Elvis teaching a shy boy to dance, Elvis quietly comforting a girl who'd aged out of the foster system. But perhaps most heartbreaking were the photos of Elvis alone in the room, usually late at night, writing letters by lamplight or organizing files. These images captured his dedication to maintaining personal connections with hundreds of children, tracking their progress through school, celebrating their achievements, mourning their setbacks. The loneliness in his face during these private moments revealed the true cost of his secret, carrying the hopes and fears of so many young lives while being unable to share that burden with anyone. The last entry in his journal, dated just days before his death, read, "I pray that someday Priscilla will understand. I pray that the world will remember me not for the concerts they saw, but for the children they didn't see me helping." Love isn't always about the people closest to you. Sometimes it's about the people who need you most. Standing in that sacred space, surrounded by the evidence of Elvis's hidden life, Priscilla finally understood the man she'd married and lost. His greatest performance hadn't been on any stage. It had been the daily act of being simply human for children who needed to believe in goodness. The secret room didn't just change how she saw Elvis. It transformed her understanding of love itself. Sometimes the deepest love requires the greatest silence, and sometimes our most important work is the work no one ever sees. What secrets do you think your loved ones carry? Share your thoughts below, And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories that will change how you see the world.